Um, Today we're fortunate to have Mr. Laurie Padmore here. So instead of me doing the acknowledgement of country, Laurie, if you'd like to come up to the table, Laurie, and Laurie's going to do a welcome to country for us, and also, yeah, just talk to us a little bit about that. Thanks, Laurie.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. I just want to talk about, when we talk about welcome to country, I just want to just give you a brief background on what we think, what our perception of it is. As you know, there's three groups of the Tableen Yidinji. There's us, Lulbara Yidinji. We're the ones that are the rainforest ones that are close to Yungaburra and Bull Pocket. Next one is Dullabed, that's Kayleen's mob, if you know Kayleen. And the next one is Wedgenborough, which are here at Tableen, which are here in Atherton. But also there is another, on the boundaries there's also Nudgem. So usually when we give welcome to country, usually we have a Nudgem person, usually too, but we have an agreement that we can sort of do it on their behalf also, so to make it easier. So same as like we've got an agreement with the two lakes. Their lake is Lake Eacham and our lake is Lake Moraine. So we have an agreement between us about that too, because they're two volcanic lakes and agreements, they've got different stories, nearly similar stories to it. And that's how we work with them. Welcome to country to us, because there are three different tribal groups with Yiddish. The way we say things is it's very diverse, and our way of doing it, the Duggalbara Yiddish way of doing it, is we always acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge them. The reason why we acknowledge them is, in the old days when we used to go into the forest and all of this, we used to sing out or let them know that we were there. So basically we're talking about, we believe that the spirits of the rainforest and our people, they still walk, they still inhabit that. So we're just letting them know that we are going there and we are doing that. So my way of doing that, so I acknowledge them, I do my acknowledgement first and then to them here, and then I'll give you welcome to country, and that'll be it. But I just wanted to just give you that background, that's what it means. Really, the true thing of welcome to country is a welcome, but it's also a blessing. It's also a blessing that when you do enter our country, that it is by goodwill, and also our blessing is that no harm will befall you while you're on it. So that's the type of greeting. It's greeting, basically. That's the way we say it. I don't know whether my other counterparts or whether they have explained anything like this to you, but this is the way we see it, and this is the way we'll stick by that. We've always stuck by that. So the first thing I'll do is I'll say it in language to you, and then I'll go and explain what I've said. So I don't know how the other ones do it, but I'm doing it our way anyhow. Okay, so our acknowledgement to our old people is Puri Ngayongami Pama Janang Yalangunda Kalangunda Yangola. Basically what I've said there, old people, which we see as, we call our old people our spiritual ancestors. I'm here with the councillors of the council of the TRC here, and I'm about to give welcome to country. So I'm just notifying them that I'm here and this is the reason why I'm doing it. Just like you went to somebody, you went to somebody's property and you went and knocked on the door, I'm here. I might be the plumber, I'm the electrician or whatever. But you are notifying them that you're there. And that's the same thing in a different context, what we do to our people always. It's a sign of respect. Now we'll give you a welcome to country now, our perception of it, and I'm doing it on behalf of Stella and the Nudgin people and Wajanbara. So, Najibala, Najan ye, Kambura, Wajanbara, Kujan Unipan Katana, TRC, Yingogo. Basically what I've said there, I've given you roughly the first start of it. We, the clan groups of Najambara and Wajanbara, we welcome you here. The TRC members here to Atherton. And just another little part I'll add to it. Yalanguna Nganji Kuman Wubakatan, Jibatorakan. We welcome you here today as one and with a happy heart. Welcome everybody.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Laurie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, I really appreciate that. It's certainly got a lot more currency and meaning coming from a traditional owner than myself doing acknowledgement of country. So thanks very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Your time,
Thank you for
Laurie.
your
Thank
time, councillors and the mayor.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Could I ask everyone to be upstanding, please? I'll take this opportunity for us to observe a minute's silence for those members of our community that have passed since we last met. Thank you. Thanks very much. Item 6, declaration of any material personal interest, conflicts of interest by councillors or senior officers. Okay, there are none. Thank you. Item 7, confirmation of the minutes of the April meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those minutes? Councillor Wiltz is moving. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hodge is seconding. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So Councillor Clifton, you're not voting on that one because you were absent.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was not.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we've got 6 affirming those. Thank you. Item 7, business arising actions out of the minutes of the previous meeting. We do have some up here on the board. No, we don't. No. So councillors, are there any matters you wish to raise here today arising from those last minutes? No? Very good, thank you. Item 9. This morning we have a deputation from both the International Club, the President, Mr. John Wilkinson. John, if you'd like to come up. And we also would like to have Jason Cummings on the phone, if that's possible. Jason Cummings is representing the soccer club that uses the fields there at the International Club. We'll just see how we go. Hello, Jason. It's Rod Marty here from the Tablelands Regional Council.
How are you, Rod?
Good, thank you. We've got you on speakerphone in our meeting, Jason.
Yeah. How is everybody?
Thank you, Jason.
All right. So we've got John Wilkinson's joined us here in person. So John's here, and
Nice.
and yourself,
Yep.
representing the soccer club.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll hand over to. Would you like to? Who's going first?
Oh, I think just let Jason state his case.
Yes. We'll go to you first, Jason, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, no worries. Obviously, the soccer and touch are hurting with these costs that we were under presumption you guys were working on. I haven't seen the report or whatever that has come out from it all, but I did notice that the last time the $12,000 bill was waived, which was great. While we're working on it, we've just received another $8,000, and I noticed that the rates had gone up from 85 cents to 98 cents a kilolitre, which equates to $900 a megalitre. So $980 a megalitre. Farmers are paying $30 to $50 a megalitre, so I find that a bit hard to justify. And of course, both soccer and touch have both community groups that have probably close to 400 members at the moment. And those groups bring a lot of visitors to the area with their home hosting games, their carnivals, there's gala days, club, school and zone-based competitions, you know. So I do struggle to understand why council is not supporting this and why. Obviously we've just started to receive these, as all you guys know. We've never received water bills in the past, and it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow, to be honest. So.
Thanks, Jason. We might go to John, and yeah, you can.
I've just got one more point. How does, I know that you guys have been working on it since our meeting with Rod and Kev and Gary. There's a lot of other premises around the Shire that are housed and owned and run and everything by council. I just got a couple of questions, like the showgrounds and the Miro Park, for instance. You've got multiple clubs in there with showgrounds as senior league. You've got taekwondo, you've got gymnastics, you've got all sorts of different community groups in there. How's their water separated? And same at Miro Park, you've got your, obviously the turf club, the cricket, you've got judo, and I think the jiu-jitsu all use the hall out there. There's lots of different community groups, and I don't believe that it would be possible that you guys could be even charging those guys water in those areas. So we, as our two groups, why are we singled out, you know? Which was a point I brought up at our very first meeting as well, where we felt as if we were singled out.
Yeah, look, Jason, we understand all that, and that's the problem. The problem is we've got community groups, whether they're sporting groups or other groups, right across the TRC, who've got a diversity of arrangements. And now this has come up with the International Club, and you know, we're trying to sort it out and trying to be consistent at the same time. But when we look across the board, there's all these different arrangements that have, some of them being put in place by different, you know, in the pre-amalgamated councils. And everyone had their own view of what was an acceptable thing. So the challenge for us now is to try and get some consistency across all those groups, or consistency or some equity across all those groups, and it's not easy. So look, what we've, you know, we thought with this deputation today, you can make your case. The decision we make today is most likely going to be a short-term one, Jason, until we've got sufficient time, because talking to all these groups, and especially if you're talking to them about an increase in their water charges, none of these things can happen quickly or easily.
And both Soccer and touched on a privately owned international club supplied venue. Don't ask for anything from council, as you all know. So even if you were talking about a concession on our water rates, I still don't believe that would be a fair and equitable thing for all parties, because if you've got other parties out there that aren't paying anything at the moment anyway, but all of a sudden we're still going to charge us, even at you halve $980 per meg to whatever that is, $4.95 or whatever. That's still crazy money, you know. And I don't know whether anyone's done the simple maths. 1 hectare, 100 metres by 100 metres by 100 mil is 1 megalitre. So that's 4 inches of irrigation on fields that bring people to our community and to our shire. So how many times are we going to do that a year? And even at $500 a meg, it's ridiculous money. It's not affordable by the clubs, that's for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. We'll just go over to John.
Yep. Well, I think as you're all aware, the International Club supplies the venues, as Jason alluded to. They pay $1 a year. That's to make the contract legal. It comes at great cost to the International Club. We're paying thousands of dollars a month in maintenance, and so I think that we're meeting community, not requirements, but expectations that we give back to the community. The water is something that, as we deja vu a little bit, we said before that we had agreements with the council, because we're supplying these fields, that the council don't have to. There's 400 odd kids running around there, plus all the seniors. We have a problem with parking on those days. Not only that, we're having the schools coming there now. Last Friday, which is one of our trading days, there was 3 car parks for our patrons. So we also have a few problems. Financially, it has been suggested to me that we're a business. We as the International Club are a business. Everything goes back into the community. The soccer club, the touch football club aren't a business. We make $1 a year out of each club. We don't make $1 a year, but that's what the charge is on their lease every year. So they're not a commercial business. So whether you look at, we've already got the water separated. We get 2 bills. We're not asking for anything for the International Club. We're not arguing there. We're not asking for a rates reduction, but we certainly are behind the soccer club. As I think everybody here knows, I was soccer president here for many, many years, but I'm not wearing that hat today or you know, for quite some time. I think the council need to look at the what we give and what the soccer club does and what the council is going to be up for if you have to find fields for 400 kids that we supply at no cost to council whatsoever at this point in time. I think Jason's, what Jason was alluding to, I think that you guys need to respect, as you just had a gentleman here saying that respect your elders, and I think you guys need to respect some of the decisions that were made by your predecessors, of which we brought that up the last meeting, which I think was just thrown out on a whim, that why should we do that? The soccer club's not going to get anything out. At the end of the day, the international club, I mean, at the end of the day, the international club has got the responsibility to pay the bills. If the soccer club can't pay it, the touch can't pay it, they close down, the international club pays it, which we would do, but obviously, you know, so we're not trying to hold the council over a barrel and saying, well, you know, you're not going to get paid. That's not the issue. The issue is it shouldn't be charged to the junior sporting as it is. The reason that they need water is not so much to make the grass grow, it's because the way that the fields were built 45 years ago, the topsoil wasn't taken off and then put back. The ground is as hard as concrete. The kids play down there, they have injuries, they get shin splints. My own grandson couldn't play anymore because his legs got too sore. If we don't water it, it gets harder and harder and harder in the dry season. So that's one of the reasons why it's got to grow. And there's a lot of arms and legs running around out there, and if we don't put a bit of water and fertiliser and whatever on it, well, they'll just deteriorate, as I'm sure you guys know with your parks and gardens as to what happens. So as a president of the International Club, and my committee is fully behind the soccer, the touch, as far as trying to get some water to water the fields. I can't understand how so much water's been used. I think I talked to Mark when I had a meeting with him before, and it equates to an inch a day of water. I mean, that $8,000 bill is only for 6 months, and it hasn't even been used. I mean, we've gone through the wet season, so it's an extraordinary amount of water. It's certainly not going into the international club. So, I mean, the bill before was 12 months. I don't know where that really came from. I don't know whether the council has checked meters on a regular basis, or is it just once every 6 months? Is the meter working? Has anybody checked whether the meter is actually doing the right? I don't know. But from the international club point of view, we're behind the soccer club and the football club. And we hope that the council can come to some sort of a resolution. I mean, we're obviously aware of several different sporting clubs that probably don't pay rates or water. I don't know what the racecourse does, and I don't really know what the showgrounds does with rugby, but I'm led to believe that there's no water charges up there. I think it needs to be fair and equitable, and we're talking junior sport. If each child has to pay $100 extra for water a year, mums and dads are hurting as it is. You know, they got fuel price rises. We all know what's going on, and they're just going to pull out. So you'll have no soccer and you'll have no touch. What do those kids do? You know, I mean, I think that's what the council's got a responsibility to look after those type of kids. We're providing the fields at, like I say, great expense. All the internal stuff, their little canteens that they've got, toilets that they've got, you know, the charges on pedestals that we pay, that all comes back to the International Club. There's nothing on charge to the clubs for that, any of that internal stuff. It's merely the water that we're talking about. The electricity, because of COVID, the soccer all touch, and they use quite a bit of power. We haven't given them a bill for, well, since COVID. So it comes with quite an expense, probably roughly $5,000 a month we're paying to have those kids playing football and out on the park. So I'm up for any questions you might have.
Councillors, any questions for John or Jason?
Just with regard to the comment, John, about whether the water meter has been tested or not, we just got confirmation from Mark this morning that it has been. It was tested yesterday. It's working okay. The water's going through it. The meter's working properly.
So
And I took, from my point of view there, that main valve on that should be off at the moment, and has been since I spoke to Kev about a week ago or something, wasn't it, Kev?
Yeah, something
And
like that.
yeah, we're just waiting on if there's other things that may surface over time that are coming off that meter downstream, but we don't believe so. I sent a complete spreadsheet of readings and irrigation times and cycles through to Gary over this period. So
yeah, that's acknowledged. But could I just ask, in terms of the hard of the surface, do you have a management regime for the turf that'd be on water?
yeah,
they do.
we've the clubs have spent a considerable amount of money over the last few years with aeration, gypsum and fertiliser. So that is definitely opening up, and there's not the issue of the hardness like it was, which means that our watering and that will become a lot more efficient as well over time. So, but it doesn't matter which way you go. You've got probably a hectare and a half there in the two fields. You're not going to do, especially through the winter period. You're probably talking at least an inch a week as a maintenance regime, and to do that over that say 3-month period, which is when our season rolls, is considerable. So there's, without even thinking about it, there's probably about 12-18 meg of water there every year through the winter to do that maintenance. If you were to give it 4 inches, so one would be 3 months, an inch a week would be 4 inches per month. So by a hectare and a half, you're talking minimum of 6 to 8 meg in maintenance watering. Without that's if we get no drizzle or anything throughout winter, you know. So at the current rates, you're talking 6 to 8 grand a year in water.
Okay, is there anything more you'd like to add, John or Jason? Any questions, councillors?
Probably just one. Yeah, it's hard to compute how all that water's getting used. If you were getting an inch a day for 6 months, you would think, where would that water go? You know, it's just hard to compute. So something strange.
Well, Jason's just said there that it was 8 megs of water over 12 months. Well, we've used 8 megs of water over 6 months. The last bill was 8 megs of water, and that's in the rain season, so I don't know.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but you said maintenance water across a 3-month period may come to the 8 megs, so did I misunderstand?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, just over the winter period, you would be looking at a minimum of an inch per week as a maintenance water. Like at the moment, we've just held off on a fertiliser regime because we can't afford to water. So the money we've spent about 25 grand on those fields as clubs over the last 5 years, and that is to try and improve everything so that we're using less. to get it out of that hard concrete scenario that it was, and it is improving. But at the end of the day, if we let it go backwards, it's just going to go back to the way it was. So, unfortunately, it's an evil necessity, is that water.
All right. Any more questions, councillors?
No, not really, Mr Mayor, I'll discuss it all when we come to the report.
So last call, John or Jason, anything else you'd like to add there?
No, I think it just comes down to whether we have that council support for the community groups that are involved, and that fair and equitable to all clubs across, and the whether we're singled out or not. That's what it comes down to from our point of view.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
The only thing, Rod, is that available. If anybody wants to talk about it, I'm on the end of a phone, or I can come to a meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, same here.
we appreciate
That's all
the
right.
council's efforts. At least I'd more or less written it off. Wasn't happy about it, but because at the end of the day, it's really sporting clubs that should be footing the bill. We have looked at putting balls down, but we've still got to pay electricity to pump it. So there's 61 half a dozen the other. But to keep the fields up to where the boys have got it, we, like Jason says, we need that maintenance. So we are certainly available for either yourselves or your officers or whoever.
Thanks.
That'll help.
I'll be in touch post this meeting, John.
Okay.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Thanks, Jason. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Cheers. Bye.
You don't need to put so much down there so you pull the tablecloth off. All right, guys, see ya.
Thank you. All right, councillors, before we go on to item 11, I'll just refer to the CEO regarding one of our items today.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We just seek leave to remove item 13.4, Herberton Mining Museum Collection Policy from the agenda, and place it on the June agenda, as I understand it, when the strategy will also be considered.
So could I propose a motion, councillors, that we remove item 13.4 and ask that it be brought back to the June council meeting? So can I move that motion? Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cardew seconding that motion and present it to the June 28 meeting. Thank you. Those in favour of the motion that's up on the board there? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Item 11.1, the Miller Falls Precinct Improvement Plan. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Billney, and a seconder? Councillor Cardew. Councillor Billney.
Yep, through the chair. Having been involved with the Miller community over the past 3 years, I'm acutely aware of the majority of the community's desire to change the manner in which the falls are presented and operated. The precinct improvement plan, if endorsed by council today, will be a step towards potential change. A survey was undertaken from a range of stakeholders over a period of 3 months late last year, and the information gleaned from those surveys will assist and underpin the plan, which will be undertaken by external contractors. Once this has been completed, my understanding is that it'll be workshopped with councillors and then stakeholders such as the Miller community. So I do support the endorsement of the improvement plan and trust that the community aspirations will be clearly understood when the assessment is undertaken.
Thanks, councillor Billing. Councillors, anyone else wish to talk to this one? Councillor Hodge?
Yeah, I'd just like to read out the recommendation that the council approves the development of a Milamilla Falls Precinct Improvement Plan and considers future budget allocations towards infrastructure improvements. I'd just like to go to the budget. So this year there's 30,000 allocated in this year's budget to deliver the septic system review of the amenities block at the falls itself, as well as undertake a community consultation as part of the Milamilla Falls Precinct review. In addition, there's another 40,000 proposed in this coming 22-23 capital budget for the engineering design of the toilet block and the related infrastructure to support it. But that, and of course the big one here is the elephant in the room, proposes for the construction of a toilet for over $500,000, and it seems an awful amount of money for a toilet block. Now there could be reasons why. It could be the septic systems, because it's not sure how it's treated, but $500,000 seems to be a lot of money. So I'm just bringing that for everyone's notice. Not that I'm against anything, but I really need to. So we're going to spend 30 grand on the septic system review of, as it is at the moment. Then add another 40,000 in for an engineering design that may not go there, because we're not quite sure if that toilet block is going to be where it is in situ at the moment, or is it going to be further up the road.
We're not going to push ahead with those works, councillor, unless that's subject to the outcomes of the improvement plan itself. So we seek to use some of that funding to get someone to develop a plan, or the improvement plan, or assist us with the development of the improvement plan.
Okay. Anyway, I'd just like to bring it forward, that's all.
Yeah. Councillor Clifton.
So just, thanks, Mr. Mayor, point of clarification to the CEO. So that the reference to the 30,000 for this year, which we won't be considering, 40,000 for next year, which is in the future, and so that but none of the costs of this particular matter are referred to there, are they? So will there be costs associated with the development of the Milamilla Falls Precinct Improvement Plan?
Yes, there will.
And may I ask indicatively what you believe they will be?
We'll have to go to the quotation process and bring that back, councillor. So I don't have an indicative figure in my head. I don't know whether you've done any research around that, or whether the general manager infrastructure has a view. But no, we haven't. We're just seeking to use the budget allocation and to get quotations from suitably qualified people to assist with the development of the plan that ultimately satisfies the community's expectations rather than technical issues that we may have to deal with.
Councillors, any more on this one? Councillor Billing, did you want to add any more to?
No, my opening comments still support the plan.
Yeah, Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I support the improvement plan and what it's going to try and achieve, because this has been going on for some time now, and the facilities out at the falls there are very, very ordinary, to say the least. So getting this done and looking at the ways we can improve that out there is something that really needs to happen. But what I really want to emphasise is that on this journey of developing this plan, we really need to ensure that we engage with the Milamilla community. And I can't put that in the strongest possible terms, because they are very active, very vocal, and they know what they want. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardew. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you.
Also thank our Executive Manager of Economic Development for providing the report and pushing this along. Appreciate it.
Thank you, thanks Angelo. 13.1, Financial Report, April 2022. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge, a seconder. Councillor Clifton. Councillor Hodge.
Okay, just like to go to Manager of Finance. Same question I always asked you. We're tracking well the budget at the moment.
Correct, our operational position is quite good.
Okay. The Technology One data migration, where it's up to 33% over what the original quote was. Was that the same one we had last month meeting? I just haven't got, I thought that was there last meeting. I'm not quite sure because I haven't got it in front of me. But this is the first time it's been here?
I believe so. I'll review and I'll
Okay.
come back to you.
But it is, was it 33% over what the
From
original quote was?
The original value.
Yeah, so, all I'm just saying again is, every time we seem to have stuff, we seem to be, but there could be valid reasons why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For
So
sure.
this component is for the addition of, it enables our asset management to function better in the field. So there's learnings that we take on as part of the project, and to get the best out of our application, this component was identified to assist with that.
So this is part of the stage 2, is it, the
Correct.
asset management, where we're going from confirm.
From a combination of asset registers to a centralised asset
To
register,
to
which will
tech-
also function and be serviceable from the field.
Good. Only one last thing, oh, sorry. Got here, in the outside suppliers, there's one here somewhere for process and issue the dog renewal notices, $4,000. We're spending $4 million a year on IT, and we still got to spend $4 grand to send out dog notices.
So sending out notices, so having a print house, that's via a print house, which has the relevant information and ability to have details on the notice, such as BPay barcodes and those types of things. But we don't have internal printing services to the extent of our rates notices or our dog registration notices.
Oh, I know, I understand the rate notices, but they've been printed years ago. So how long's this been going on for? Is this a while, is it?
I believe so.
The dog notices? That's it.
It's a lot more- Generally speaking, a lot more cost effective to generate them externally than in in-house resources.
So we've used the same print house that we use for our rates notice, which we've got an agreement with. They have our details, our logos, all that type of things. So it's
Okay, fair enough. One day they might all be on email or something, email like
we are progressing towards that. So certainly within our rates notices application, we are encouraging people to sign on for emailed notices.
We can go back in time, Councillor Hodge, and get you to come in and help us fold them all.
Even CEO used to.
Councillor, leave the envelope.
Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Although I don't believe it's referred to in these documents, I understand, but I think it's worthwhile making our community aware that we've suffered a loss in our financial assistance grants over for the following year. And I'd like to ask the CEO to talk about the reason for that, as to why we are apparently being reduced.
We will be, thank you, happy to answer that. We will be meeting with the Grants Commission on the 16th of June, and that's probably the appropriate time for us to canvass those questions in some detail. I have a view as to why that might be, but my view may not be correct, so I won't. But I would understand it would be the valuations of land compared to the rates that we raise. That would be my conjecture, if you like, but the Grants Commission will be here on the 16th of June, and we will be able to put those questions to the Commission. It's also the case that the Local Government Association of Queensland, on behalf of all councils, has been seeking unsuccessfully to get the Grants Commission to open their black box a little bit and provide more detailed explanation to councils around that. And I know that the finance managers also sought to have some conversations and to get some understanding about why a grant appears to go down, and then we get an advance to payment that seems to be in contradiction of that. So we will be in a better place to make a definitive statement to the community when we have direct advice from the Grants Commission after the 16th of June. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Gary, and thanks, Mr. Davis.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I know.
We interchange.
Councillors, any more questions on this one for Erica or the CEO or PMs? Okay, councillors, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 13.2, revenue policy. Do I have a mover and seconder of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge, moving. A seconder, please. Councillor Wilkes. Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Excuse me, yeah, okay, I'll just go on. I just thought everyone's arms tied down there somehow, but anyway. No, I'm happy, we've been through this before, so, I'm happy with it.
Very good. Councillor Wilkes, no. Anyone like to talk or question this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 13.3, caravan park rules. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Thanks, Bill, for coming up. Thanks, Councillor Hodge and Councillor Clifton. Councillor Hodge.
Oh, yes, thanks very much. Before we go to Phil for some explanation to it, but I've been through it and it's pleased that the rules will be in place. Everyone, whoever comes to our parks, knows the rules, and as the report says on its 42 days, it's holidays, it's not short-term accommodation, and there is another, it's to be able to give an extension for another 42 days or 6 weeks. So, yeah, happy with the report. So.
Yeah, okay. Look, as councillors would know, you know, this is part of a journey we've been on for some time now, and we are getting more and more aware of the intricacies of making changes like this to caravan parks. So it is a journey. We're on the right path, so it's a good thing. But I might hand over to Phil because I'll leave him talk about this in a little bit more detail, if that's okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, thanks, Councillor Hodge. Just for clarification, Council already had some existing rules, so the reason that we brought the revision or revised rules to Council is we recently had some confusion about some of the documents and some previous updates where there was some inconsistencies with the publications of park rules, so it was time to conduct a review and adopt those just so there's some clarity moving forward in light of Council's earlier decisions around its desire to end permanent tenancies. Just one other minor note that we haven't included an effective date in the report. The intention was that these commence from the 1st of June, acknowledging that it is notices to some existing potential long-term tenant, or we've treated them as long-term tenants, so we've given them the full notice under the residential tenancies provisions, and so the intention is that the park rules will commence following their departure on 31st of May.
Councillor Hayden.
Okay, on page 64, Bill, can I just ask a question? Check-in time is 10 AM and check-out time of the day of departure is 2 PM. Actually, every time I've gone to somewhere, it's actually the opposite way around. I don't sort of get that. So I can be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, I don't have to leave till 2. If you've had to clean a room, which I did for 5 years, waiting for 2 o'clock for someone to leave a room and clean it, I think that's probably back to front. Is that how you read it? Or have I read it wrong? Am I reading it wrong? That's what I just want to know. Sorry. Do you see the paragraph?
Thanks, Councillor. That does look like it should be reversed, and I'd suggest that the delegation that we proposed in the recommendation would be able to make that minor amendment.
Good
We can note that amendment.
I was thinking, yippee, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, it's good to see that councillors read the fine print. It's very, very good. So, Phil, could I ask you to give some draft words to Jackie as a proposed amendment so that our mover and seconder can consider whether they'll accept that amendment regarding the date?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I suggest that on the first recommendation that we add the words on the end to be effective from 1 June 2022.
CEO,
That's fine.
looks okay with you?
Yeah, just that the mover and second are happy with that.
Yeah. Zach, you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, so we've got councillor Hodge moved and councillor Clifton seconded. So councillors, are you happy with the amendment that's up on the screen there?
Yep.
No, fine, thanks. Any other questions, councillors? Yeah, councillor Clifton?
Not so much a question, but just confirm that these rules absolutely necessary for us to state that it's it's short-term holiday accommodation rather than permanent. But these, of course, are in the context of the wider, more detailed steps we're taking for the eventual lease of the caravan park to private interests. So in that sense, they're not interim rules, they're certain, but they can be varied if we move to a lease arrangement in the future.
So through the chair, yes, councillor. I think it's section 228 of the residential tenancies gives a park owner the ability to make rules. So that is certainly open for the owner of the park rules to make and amend those rules as the owner sees fit. And as I mentioned, the reason for the change or the review of these rules was just purely because there has been some confusion by the managers or previous managers over there about what was intended by council, and so that's come to light through the most recent stays of some of the guests out there. So just for everyone's sake, we're proposing just to clarify what council's intended intentions are with the types of stays that we're having at Lakeside. So.
Just one more.
Very good. We'll go councillor Hodge, then councillor Cardew.
Yeah, just to go to Phil, in regards to the new ruling that comes in October, I think it is, where if you haven't got these rules in place and the paperwork is not in place, people can take advantage of that and it'll be almost impossible to remove them.
So through the chair, so the rules aren't, or those changes that are coming in October aren't necessarily affected by the rules. So what you may be getting at, councillor, is that under the Residential Tenancies Act, there is provision for a wholly implied agreement, and so where there's an absence of paperwork, but there's a series of conduct or between two parties, there can be an implied residential tenancies agreement. The changes that are coming into effect in October are potentially onerous for a landlord in the fact that the without grounds provision is to be removed from the ability to vacate a tenancy. So that's the implications from the changes in October, and partially why we're seeking to clarify what council's intention around the park stay is, so that we avoid that scenario. So the current situation we have out there, where we've got some guests where there is arguably the existence of an implied tenancy, and we've given them the benefit of the doubt and then followed those procedures under the Residential Tenancies Act, just as just to be on the safe side, I guess, and to avoid that situation, we're just being unequivocal about what the terms of their stay are moving forward. So.
And finally, you'll notice, everyone, that this is only to do with the Lakeside Motor Inn and Caravan Park. So once the Malanda Falls Caravan Park is leased, they'll abide by their own rules.
Yeah, so through the chair, we did consider doing the park at Malanda at the same time, but it's currently subject of the tender. So we're proposing to consider that moving forward, depending on the outcome of that tender. So.
Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, Phil, if and when we lease these parks, do these rules carry over into the lease, or does the leasee have the opportunity to make their own rules?
So
these fall off?
Through the chair, the council would have the opportunity to determine that as part of the lease provision. So, like I said, section 228 gives the park owner, and I don't know off the top of my head what park owner is defined to include, whether that includes a lessee, but I'd suggest that that's something that council has within its ability to be able to either consult with the lessee or provide them with the delegation, if you like, through that section 228 to be able to make their own rules if they see fit. But it's probably likely something that council may want to have a say in any proposed lease terms anyway, as to how its park is managed. So,
because I mean, I'm still, I don't know what the right word, frustrated, I guess, is that, you know, we're still dabbling in caravan parks, and we're trying to get our caravan parks, and we're still dealing with it, and it's costing us a lot of money. So one of the things that, you know, we've all acknowledged that we're not very good at running, council's not very good at running caravan parks. So I'm not sure whether that recommendation should be amended to allow these rules to drop off when the lease is signed, and to allow a potential lessee manager make their own rules and run their own show. And that's what we want. I think that's basically what this council wants. If we're going to put a lessee in there, then they need to be able to run it without any interference from council. So I just don't want to see us playing with park rules that we're not good at, and let that be the responsibility of the person running the caravan park. So whether that needs to be amended or not, I'll leave it to the rest of the council.
So, Councillor Billen?
Yeah, through the chair, I think the motion as it stands relates to the current position we're in, not potentially what's going to happen down the track. So I don't think we require an amendment at this point.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We've got a council resolution here today. That's going to be on. That's going to be law. Will it carry over with the lease, or will it not?
So if I may, through the chair, at the time when you establish a lease, you enter into a lease agreement, and in that lease agreement will specify what the rights and obligations of the lessee are, and that also relates to the park rules and also the limitations that they have in establishing park rules. So we still might, for example, want to limit the ability for them to have permits there, because at the end of the lease, after maybe 5-10 years or whatever the term of the lease is, it'll become ours again, and then we might have permits there that we can't get rid of without grounds, or sorry, only with grounds. But that's, so at the time, because the council will resolve the lease at that time, and that then basically supersedes this resolution that you make at this point in time. So my view is that you don't have to foreshadow that in this resolution, because that will be dealt with at the right time.
Thanks,
if I can, further through the chair, just on Mark's point, I think that's correct. If we're trying to preempt what the market's going to seek from council in terms of what should be contained in the lease, I think that can be wrapped up in that lease process. So if there's a proposal and a submission, as Mark said, where the market wants something different, that could be wrapped up in that whole lease award, where we could table the rules for review and make amendments, and that would be appropriate for council, and it would allow that flexibility to give a potential owner some more scope. So it's not always not lost, and it's not a significant rework of this park rules.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried. Thank you. We'll go ahead to 13.5. Atherton District's Animal Welfare Society. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bilney. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Bilney.
Through the chair, just a point of clarification, and it may be a little difficult to add a value on this, but if I can ask Hilary, by increasing the amount as requested in the report, there would be a supposed benefit through our local laws in the reduction of workloads from chasing additional animals out in our community that would be dissexed under this program. So essentially, we'd be spending more and we'd be saving more. Is that fair to say?
So if I can, through the chair, I would suggest that what we would see is an improved service from the local laws team rather than our local laws officers focusing so much on the animal management, that we would expect to be able to be doing other things, so a service improvement for the community from that small team that we have. So in terms of the animals that we deal with, we know that we have been improving our data collection and are continuing to do so, but certainly over the last 3 years, approximately 80% of the animals that we impound are not desexed. And so those animals, apart from the fact that they're not being desexed may in fact contribute to the issues that cause them to end up being impounded, they're also, whilst wandering, potentially increasing to the animal population on the tablelands and therefore increasing to the workload. So we know that, and we also know that it costs the community, in terms of direct effort, it costs the community in excess of $40,000 a year, very rough numbers, for the number of animals that we impound. So that is a significant cost. And then there's obviously all the additional costs around the issues that we have with animal attack, livestock damage or other community impacts of wandering dogs.
Hilary, also, if the Animal Welfare Society didn't go down this path, potentially would this fall on our shoulders to take up some sort of desexing program?
I think that what we're proposing here, together with the increase in contribution, is the development of a memorandum of understanding. So, and I think the key thing here is that we would like to work closely with the society through a memorandum of understanding to identify ways that we can actually influence and change behaviours with this money, rather than just be providing that money to the community. Ultimately, the choice to desex an animal always rests with the owner, and the burden of doing that rests with the owner. The extent to which council may have to step in and do some other thing, it's difficult to foreshadow. We do have a body of work planned over the next, certainly over the next 12 months, in terms of development of an animal management policy, and then a program to actually educate and inform the community about the impacts of the decisions they make around their animals, and also other choices they could make.
Councillor Kaji. Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I won't be supporting this recommendation. Look, the Animal Welfare Society, where they started off, and their process is to assist. I think they originally looking to assist people on pension cards and and that people in that sort of situation, to assist the elderly and that, to have their pet and to have some sort of concession, if they buy a pet and get it desexed or what have you. And I support that 100%. What I don't support is that the Animal Welfare Society have decided to expand that and give that opportunity to the wider community, which I think then coming to council looking for a handout to do that. We're in a stage of really having to look at our budget, our overall budget, and trying to reduce costs to prevent having to put rates up. And then we get these sort of things coming in that just goes against it and makes that process that much more harder. So while I still support the yearly $5,000 donation to the society, I believe they should be using that for their original intent, to help the disadvantaged, like pensioners and those sorts of people, but not be able to provide it. Well, they can provide it to the wider community, but they find the funds to do that. I won't be supporting it on that grounds.
Through the chair, if I could just provide a comment there, just for clarity. The Animal Welfare Society, DAWS provide a significant, and the data's in the report, a significant benefit to the community around those vouchers for people with pension cards. And so identified target groups, that was there, that's always been their intent. The contribution that council made, which was established many years ago, that was actually with council about expanding the program beyond those people who hold a pension card. So it was actually council's involvement that actually drove the expansion of that program, just for clarity. So it's not the society saying, not the group saying, we want to give it to everybody, can you give us more money? It's actually council saying, if we give you money, would you give it to more people? That was the basis for the arrangement that currently exists. So what we are looking to do is, as I said before, as well as supporting their suggestion for an increase based on the demand that they're seeing, also put some rigour around how that money is actually provided to the community to ensure that it's actually changing behaviour.
We'll go Councillor Hayden and Councillor Hodge.
Okay. So recently I had an email and I just want to give you a brief outline of it. So it says the local dog cat population are poorly managed and the proportion of not desexed animals in the population is unacceptable. Many families and retired single pet owners here in a certain town love their companions but do not have the chance of having their animals seen or treated by veterinarians, and this is caused because they don't have the money or the access to pay for this. The council needs to organise opportunities for local people to access free or affordable vet visits for the animals to be desexed. Without this access to regular, cheap or free vet services, animal health and welfare here in a certain town, Cumberland town, are deteriorating and many animals are seen already suffering from untreated injuries and health problems because of the overwhelming ownership of animals. So I just want to let that be known.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. We'll go Councillor Hodge, then Councillor Clifton.
Yes, I'm going to foreshadow that I'm going to move amendment to the recommendation. Do you want me to move
Well, you can foreshadow what that might be, Councillor Hodge, but we've got that on the table at the moment. If you want to foreshadow what you propose, you can do that.
Yep. Well, I will be moving an amendment to probably give them a 20% increase, which would be $6,000. There's no way in the world that if someone comes in and says, I want 100% increase in the funding. We have a tough enough budget coming forward, but at the end of the day, people have got to be responsible for their pets, and it doesn't matter where you go. Everyone has these sort of problems. So I will foreshadow that I'll be increasing the amount for the next 3 years for $6,000 a year. So I hope I can get someone to second that motion.
Councillor Clifton.
Much the same. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm a great believer of people being responsible for their pets. I know that the wildlife of our country is decimated by wildcats around the place. I know that a leading person in the town has written on Facebook saying, why don't you license cats? And I know that this council, not this council, but previous councils have done that. What I'm drawn to suggesting, and I don't know how to manage this, is that we don't have, as Ms. Jackson said, we don't have a current animal policy. Along with my other approach is to leave this on the table until we come up with a proper management policy for our animals. That's where the really hard-nosed discussions about whether we love dogs or love cats or whether whatever will be had, and then this would be an outcome from it. It seems to me to be jumping the gun and particularly over a 3-year period, if we don't do something, if we don't tackle it now, and I'm talking generally, and I don't know how to go about doing it, not amending it, but leaving it on the table until we have a proper management discussion about how we're going to deal with animals. And I foreshadow that discussion will include things like our attitude to rehousing dogs, for example, just to give you an idea of how I'm thinking of the complexity of it. I've seen many, many rescue dogs that have been rehoused, and those dogs cringe and are frightened of just about everything. Their lives have been destroyed, and the people they live with say, don't be careful with this dog. He's frightened or she's frightened because of where she came from. We need to have a really good look at the issue. I mean, I don't know how many animals have put down over the last couple of years. I don't know how many animals have been rehoused. We say it's a complex and large problem. Our citizens say it is, and we tackle it with $5,000 in a tight budget time. Not good enough from my point of view. I think it needs to lay on the table. I'm surprised that it's been put up now without an animal policy being put up. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Yeah, look, councillors, I'll put my 2 volts worth here. I'm with Councillor Cardew on this one. I just think, you know, I'm fully supportive of the $5,000, but, you know, this is a bottomless pit for council, you know, and you know, I'm happy to give some support, but, you know, if we put in another 5,000 now, and, you know, the next council will come back with another proposal that they'll need another 5,000, because these problems don't get smaller. They just, and it's not, in my view, it's not council's, this is really not council's core business. I'm happy to support a little bit, as we have been doing. I'm happy to maintain it, but I think we're getting away from, we've got so many other issues, like, you know, we're dealing with the water at the soccer club, which is a major issue that sits right in council's, you know, drive lane that we need to deal with, whereas this one is I can see the humanity we need to, how we need to deal with this in a humane way, but it's just getting away from me. That's my particular view. Is there anyone else?
Honourable Mentor might just like to respond.
Oh, sorry.
So I do have some numbers I can provide in terms of, so and when there's a cost obviously for every animal that we impound. The only time, and the community bears that cost, and we're obligated to do that. So we're obligated to collect wandering dogs, and we're obligated to seize dogs that have been involved in dog attacks. We have these are things that we must do, and there's a cost associated with that. The only time a cost recovery is possible is when that dog can be released to the owner. We can fine the owner, you know, we can charge for the impound, we can do those, but all the animals that have no owner, that some other action is taken, there's no ability to recover any of those costs that the community bears for dealing with this animal problem. So we've had over the past 2 years and this calendar year, we've seen an increase, slow increase in the total number of animals that have been able to be released. And this current year to date, there's about 38% of animals are actually being returned and therefore able to be able to have some sort of cost recovery. In terms of the animals that we euthanize, year to date, there have been 43 euthanasias. And again, there's a cost to the community for that activity. There's also a burden on the officers that have to deal with this, and we can't discount that either. So that's year to date. Based on, if we took that as a running rate, we would project around about 100 animals this year that we would be euthanizing. And most likely that is because they are feral, they've been picked up with no ability to identify an owner, and don't pass a temperament assessment to enable rehoning, which comes back to the points that you were raising, Councillor Clifton. So there is a requirement for us to ensure before we pass on animals to agencies to consider who might be able to manage adoption, that they actually pass that assessment. So there is a cost to the community for this, and this is something that we have a choice about. These are things that we absolutely are obligated to do. So what we are seeking to do is develop programs that will influence a change in behaviour over time and reduce the problem. And certainly taking on board the comments around having a policy. We are in the process, and we will have the policy coming next month. But this is not a greenfield problem. It's not, we don't have a clear starting point where we can just say, well, let's build these things as we go. It's an existing issue. This is an existing arrangement which has some benefit, and officers strongly recommend that council consider the recommendation. Certainly, if there's a mind to vary the amount, taking into consideration the pressures on the budget, I think everybody would understand that. But certainly, strongly recommend the continuation, the development of a memorandum of understanding, and the ongoing support as one of the various levers that exist for us to improve the situation in the community.
Thank you. I would like to formally move the amendment to the motion, that in good faith to the society, and we haven't extended the amount since 2013-14, but we increased the amount by 20% from $5,000 to $6,000.
Okay, so Councillor Bilney and Councillor Wills moved and seconded the officer's recommendation. Councillor Hodge is proposing that it go from $5,000 to $6,000 a year. Councillor Bilney and Councillor Wills. And that would be for, that would go to both components there, Councillor Hodge, so it would be $6,000 per year
For the next 3 years.
For the next 3 years, yeah. Okay, so Councillor Bilney and Councillor Wills, what's your view on that amendment?
I've just got a couple of comments before.
Yes.
The first couple of
Excuse
things.
me, could I have a point of order if you don't mind? I moved it, needs to be seconded before they even, my amendment's got nothing to do with those two. In due respect.
Is that right? Yeah.
If we can't get a second, then the amendment just goes.
Okay, so sorry, I made a mistake there. So Councillor Hodge is proposing an amendment, and he's now seeking seconder for that amendment. Councillor Clifton is seconding that amendment. So we have an amended motion on the table that we're required to deal with first. So Councillor Hodge has moved, Councillor Clifton has seconded that we go from $5,000 to $6,000 as is up there on the board, and that carries through for the next 3 years.
Councillors are now entitled to speak to the amendment. Yeah.
So, councillors, I'll open the floor to the amendment on the screen. Councillor Bilden.
Yep, through the chair. Picked up on a couple of comments, but I just want to clarify. Yes, community members should be responsible pet owners. Unfortunately, the reality is that is not the case, and we do have a burgeoning problem, as Councillor Hayden mentioned in the email. The other comment I'd like to make, Mr. Mayor, was your comment about problems don't get smaller. That would mean the problem is growing, and therefore appropriate financial support should follow. So my belief is the current funding arrangement may be insufficient for what they do now, and I would like to see an increase. What that looks like, I don't know if the $6,000 is sufficient. I'd be prepared to half that, go up to 7.5 in respect of the other councillors' concerns for the budget. But yeah, I think $1,000 increase is just is a notional amount.
Thanks, Councillor Bilden. Councillor Clifton.
I agree, Mr Mayor, that it's a notional amount, and it's designed, from my perspective, in seconding it, in to give credit to the society, to commend them for their volunteer effort, commend them for the work they do. But I fervently believe that we need, as a council, to sit down and work out a proper animal welfare and protection policy and put it into effect, and look at the wider ramifications of it in our budget. It's not just $5,000. The issue will grow. So I've seconded $1,000. I'm gladdened by the proposition that that policy will be coming to the next council meeting, at which time we'll be able to consider more informed decisions in the future about animal welfare and protection.
Very good, thanks Councillor Clifton. Any other councillors like to talk to this one? Those in favour of Councillor Hodge and Councillor Clifton's amended motion? Carried. We need to vote again. All right, so the amendment is now the motion. And now we vote on the motion. Those in favour of the motion that's up on the screen? Carried. Would you like those recorded, councillors? Thank you. Yeah, look, we might take a short break, councillors. So we'll come back just after 10:30, huh? Thank you. It's 10:34, thank you. All right, thanks everyone. 13.6, Inclusion Advisory Committee. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew and Councillor Wilkes, thank you. Councillor Cardew.
Last bit straightforward for me.
Yep. Might go to you, Shirley, if that's okay.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, councillors. The report before you is the TRC Inclusion Advisory Committee report. I would like to acknowledge Councillor Hodge, who is the chair, but I've also in our gallery is David Jones and Kirsty Lampert, who are on the committee. So I'd like to acknowledge the work that they've continued to volunteer through this committee and the committee themselves. The report is a reflection of the hard work that they have been doing alongside our officer who attends as a secretariat. As you can see through the report, the plan is in there of their achievements to date, and the following report is one of the outcomes of that achievement as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge the committee and the great work that they're doing on behalf of council and for council. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks Kirsty, thanks David, thank you very much. Thank you for coming today too. Is that it, Shirley? Councillors? We'll go Councillor Hodge, then Councillor Clifton. Huh?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Mayor. It's a privilege to be chair of this committee. As you'll see in the report, we've got the action plan for 2022 and also the inclusion, making business better inclusion toolkit, which will be myself and all the other councillors and yourselves will be taking out to the community. I think it's next month, first week of next month. So I'd just like to thank all the members of the committee. They do a great job, and it's a really community based need. So thanks very much.
Very good, Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In your absence, we had whilst you were away on advocacy duties, we had a workshop session presented by the, I hesitate to use the word girls, but I will, and their enthusiasm and their professionalism was, for me, was really marked. And I'd like to comment on that. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Clifton. Councillors, any more discussion on this one? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.7, making business better, inclusion toolkit. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendations? Councillor Hodge and Councillor Wills. Councillor Hodge?
Yeah, thanks very much. Just as I mentioned before, this is the toolkit that's going out beginning of next month. You'll notice in your report where the committee, you changed the word for our logo, where it's got everybody is welcome here. The committee changed that for all your councillors. So I'm looking forward to presenting this toolkit. I think we start off down at IGA next week. Is it next week? Next month? Yeah, that's it. And then that's it. And then we all go to the other towns, Herbert and Kiro, and all the other councillors will be presenting to them. So it'll be great. So thanks again. And this is great for business. That's what it's all about, to make sure that all the businesses in the TRC region are aware of things that they can do better to make sure everyone is invited and everyone's included in it. So it'll be great for business. So thanks, Dave. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hodge. Councillor Billman.
Just through the chair, just a point of clarification, if I may. It kicks off on Monday, the 30th, at Millamilla.
Fantastic.
Had to get them.
All right. Yeah, just, I would note, Mr. Mayor, that there are other sessions on that day, but the Millamilla starts at 10 o'clock, whereas the younger ones are in the afternoon. The young borough in the afternoon. So I acknowledge Councillor Bill.
Yeah, we did that purposely because, as you're aware, all the crowd comes in early in the afternoon, so we thought we'd better get over and done with that.
All right, thanks everyone. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 13.8, heavy vehicle national law, delegation of statutory powers. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge and Councillor Wills. Councillor Hodge.
No, happy to support it. I don't think I'd like to be making decisions on this, so I'll leave it up to the CEO and the General Manager. Thank you very much. No, all fine, thanks.
Okay. Would you like to talk to this one, Hillary?
No, I think it's clear. Excuse me, I think the report's clear.
Okay.
Is there questions?
Any questions, councillors?
Procedural matters.
Yep. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.9, Residential Tenancies and Rooming Accommodation Act 2008, delegation of statutory powers. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Hodge and Councillor Wills.
They want to put their hands up, don't they? Yes, as I just said, yeah, straightforward. I'll leave this up to the CEO and the general managers to make sure that the decisions are made on our behalf. So if it goes wrong, I'll be blaming you. Okay, thank you.
Status quo stands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hillary, would you like to talk about this one at all?
No, again, I think it's just addressing a change in legislation, so.
Yes, very good. Okay, thanks.
Just by way of comment, Mr. Mayor, it's essential that we have those things right. If we do take action and the delegations are not completely correct, then actions are placed at risk. So.
Very good. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Okay, now we'll go to item 14, notice of motion. Councillor Cardew has got a notice of motion here. I might let
That would be rightly considered under 15, business without notice, Mr Mayor, as it wasn't received in time to be a formal notice, so.
Okay.
Only technical matter that would go back to the motion without notice, even though you've got some notice.
Gotcha, okay.
Statutory notice.
Gotcha, okay, so we've just been advised of a slight glitch there in procedure. So we'll call this one business without notice. That's correct. So we'll move on from item 14, we'll go to item 15, and I'll ask Councillor Cardew to bring this business without notice to our attention.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Council's been in receipt of request from the Atherton Herberton Historic Railway Committee to take possession of our old antique road roller. It's a diesel operated machine, to have it displayed along with their antique trains and carriages and whatnot at the Herberton Museum up there, which I think is a fantastic idea. It'll take this roller, which is in working condition, I believe. It'll take it from the corner of our workshop shed under cobwebs and everything else, and put it in an area where it can be enjoyed by everybody in the Herberton Rail Museum in Herberton. So I think it's a great initiative. They've indicated in their correspondence that they will maintain, service it, look after it, treat it well, which is good. And I think the only thing that I'd like to see, which was noted or commented to me by the CEO, is that because it is an antique piece of machinery, according to my information, is that there's only 2 of them in existence or good working order.
2 that we know of.
That we know of. So taking this thing from the corner of a storage shed in our depot and putting it out into the public arena for public display and a benefit for everybody, I think it's a great initiative, and even a better initiative from the Herberton Railway people to take this on and maintain it at no cost to council. So I think it's great, and I hope we get some support. So I'd like to move a motion that's on the board up there, that we enter into a long-term agreement with the Atherton Herberton Historic Railway Incorporated for the display of council's vintage diesel rail, known as Reliable, at their Herberton workshop. Or maybe that word should be museum. Workshop/museum. And delegate the authority of the chief executive to negotiate, finalise, enter into a loan agreement. By doing it as a long-term loan agreement, it ensures that the community asset which council is responsible for remains council owned and community owned. So we don't lose ownership of it. So if anything happened to the historic rail committee or whatever, we would get that back. We don't lose it. So it just puts it out on public display, letting everybody enjoy it. They'll look after it, no cost to council, and I think it's a great initiative. Thank you.
So Councillor Cardew's got a proposed motion up there on the board that he's just spoken to. Do we have a seconder? So Councillor Wilkes is seconding that. Councillors, would anyone else like to talk to this or ask questions? We'll go Councillor Hayden first.
So through the chair, and if this gets up and through the CEO, I would like to have the Tolga workshop staff be asked if they agree to the long-term agreement, as they may have an interest of where it may be displayed, and any costs associated with removal or return, if required, be paid for by the Atherton Herberton Historical Railway Group.
So if I may, through the chair, so the Atherton Herberton Railway Club had actually initially contacted one of our workshop staff there, and they've been discussing this matter amongst themselves for a little while. I don't think there's any issue with that. I think the workshop staff would be really proud to have this displayed to the community rather than sitting in the workshop. So that I hope that answers that question, and I would suggest that the final details as to who pays for what in transport and stuff, that's part of the delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the terms of the agreement.
Councillor Hayden did run that matter by me this morning, and perhaps that some of the concerns beyond the workshop staff, general manager, but we will have those conversations. Council has added it this morning. We'll certainly have the wider conversation in our depot visits next week, and we will ensure that the Togga depot in particular is informed of, if the motion succeeds, it's informed of this outcome prior to it becoming public.
Councillors? Councillor Wills?
Just very briefly, I was speaking to some of the society on the Heritage Weekend just recently, and they're extremely enthusiastic about the chances of having this on display.
Very good. Councillors?
I'm happy to support.
To get some counselling for our general manager, because he wanted it in his front yard, I think.
Could have gone in my park at Tonga. I asked you about a great one.
You can drive it up there.
All right, councillors, those in favour of the motion that's up on the board, it was moved by Councillor Cardew, seconded by Councillor Wilts. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we need to go into confidential session. We have a motion up here on the board. Just a question for you, Jackie. So we've identified rating concessions there. Is that? Oh, there's others. Yeah, good. So
There's this one over the page.
Over the page, yeah, gotcha. Okay, very good. So we've got the motion to go into confidential for these two items. Can I have a mover? Councillor Wilts is moving. Councillor Bilney is seconding. Those in favour of going into confidential? Carried. Thank you.
You ask if someone's prepared to move the officer's recommendation. It's traditional. But that is just, it's not required. Just,
Okay, everyone, we'll go to so we'll go to item 16.2. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? No. Councillor Cardew is moving the officer's recommendation, better together lease. Councillor Wilts seconding. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So we'll go to item 16.2, International Club water usage concession. Councillor Hodge is moving.
I'm moving that the council pay a once-off 75% concession for the water consumption charges approved 1st of July, 75%. I'll get the officers to put the value in.
Yeah, so Councillor Hodge is moving.
yeah, 75%. That's the number reflected.
Yeah, Councillor Hodge is moving that, and Councillor Cardew is seconding that. So the motion's up on the board. Is that correct, Councillor Hodge?
That's correct. And then just what's going on down the bottom. Oh, that's the old.
That's the old one.
Those in favour of the recommendation on the screen? That's defeated. Do we have an alternative recommendation? Councillor Clifton?
I I move that the council apply a once-off 50% concession for the period as per the original motion.
Councillor Clifton's moving the 50%. Councillor Wilts is seconding that motion. Councillor Clifton, does that look correct, what's up on the screen there?
May I request an emphasis on the word once off, the words once off, so that they be underlined. I don't know whether that's considered the amendment.
Yes, no.
Maybe.
That's just presentation, but I'm mindful in doing that, there was a school of thought that was advanced, which is valid, that we should be saying that's it.
Yeah.
But I'm also mindful when I paint yourself into a place where we've got to rescind motions or change direction once a policy is developed. So that's why it's left as it is. There's another once off.
All right, so we have Councillor Clifton's motion, seconded by Councillor Wilts. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Would you like yours recorded, Councillor Hodge? It was 6-1. 6-1. Thank you. I believe that's it, councillors. Our next meeting is Thursday, the 23rd of June, here at Atherton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
The next thing is 12:30.